Okay, CC, this is Amethyst here doing your reading number 829 for you. As usual, we'll try and spend most of our time here, but I just want to start and contextualise it by going around here, but I've done them for you before, so you kind of know that. Your reading starts off with this one here, which is you or Idaho. So that's in that usual position of theming your whole reading, if you like, and it's about change and it's about transition, but it's about change that you create from within. Okay, so that will make sense to you because this is about you deciding to not self-sabotage anymore and to actually create the future that you want. But it's really important that you understand fully and know the future that you actually want. Part of the reason why you've been holding back on creating that future is about insecurity about your own skill levels. When you know, the illogical part of your brain keeps hammering you and saying, well, actually you're not that good, you know, you don't really know what you're doing. Whereas the biggest part of you do know what you're doing. But, you know, that little girl within you still kind of holds back and says, well, hang on a minute, do you? So they're kind of flooding me with stuff at the moment, so I'm really sorry. I'm going to sound like a bit of a plonker at the moment. But they're really saying you can stop worrying quite so much and go with it. We're going to pick up on that a little bit more as we go through. Over here on this side is Older or Fian, and this is about seeking advice. So these ones here are about the last 12 months or so. So it's about seeking validation for you. So it's all about finding ways to get rid of that insecurity that you've had and just go for it, you know. And so you've often felt the need to seek validation from other people, to find ways to improve your own self-confidence and so forth. Underneath here we have Coal or Hazel, and sitting over the top of that we have Ingersoll or Broom. Coal or Hazel, love to see this here, especially when it comes up with this one here. That's about your inner wisdom. It's about those intuitive psychic skills. It's about those wonderful gifts that you have for reading, for spiritual healing, for allowing other people to get in contact with their own spiritual self. It's all of that, and you have immense talent, fantastic skill, and gorgeous gifts. Look what you got sitting on top of it. Ingersoll or Broom is very much about you sweeping away all of the old expectations, all of the fears that you have about how good or how not good you think you are at what you do. It's about sweeping them away. You know, we talked here about getting rid of all of those worries, getting rid of all of those fears. So that might be, for instance, this is a technique that I give to, or used to when I was a practicing psych, that I used to give to some of my people. And so what I want you to do, I don't know whether I've ever shared this with you, is to get a rubber band, okay, an elastic band, you know, just a rubber band, and one that's big enough to go around your wrist, okay, but not to the point where it is so tight that it marks your skin. It can be fairly loose. And then I want you to spend a couple of days listening to what your head says to you about your levels of psychic and spiritual skill. And if it comes back sometimes and your brain says to you, well, actually, you're not that good, or you know, I kind of doubt my own abilities, you know, all of that negative stuff, I want you to take notice of it and I want you to write it down. Every time you hear yourself telling yourself something negative about yourself, I want you to write it down on a piece of paper, okay? And then for every single one of those negative comments that you told yourself, I want you to write a positive instead of it, okay? So if one of the negatives comes back and says, oh, look, if I do workshops, people are just, they'll never attend, The opposite to that, the positive affirmation for that might be, I have people lined up waiting for me to deliver workshops for them. So do you get what I'm saying? So if you listen to the negative stuff that your brain says to you, and want you to write that down, and then write on the same sheet of paper, what's the positive opposite to that you could actually say? Then I want you to spend at least 4, possibly 6 weeks or more with your rubber band on your wrist, okay? And every time you hear your brain say, oh, you know, you're just not this good at this, you ping it. And you do it with the rubber band to the point where it actually stings your wrist, okay? It hurts. And then you say out loud the positive affirmation that was the opposite of that negativity, okay? So what you're doing when you do that is a behaviourist technique, is that you are training your brain eventually. It does take a wee while for it to realise that every time you say that negative stuff about yourself, ouch, it hurts. So eventually it says, well, I'm not going to say that stuff again, and you reprogram it with the positive stuff. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. So this is all about how in the last few years there's stuff that you've wanted to do, but that negative little niggly stuff that happens in your brain has been holding you back. Sitting in the middle here is sail or willow, and these two just go together like, you know, they're twins. Sail or willow is about magic, it's about femininity, it's about your intuition, it's about your gut instinct, it's about all the messages that you as a psychic post office have the ability to capture and give to other people. And you have immense talent. We can see that in these here, and your downfall has been your insecurity and your lack of self-confidence about your skills. Okay, so let's spend some more time over here. There is a stave in here that I don't like. The rest of them are brilliant, okay? We'll just go through them one at a time and I'll draw them all together. Muin or vine is a brilliant stave that themes your next 12 months ahead. Fantastic stave. This is very much about harvesting what you sow. It's about reaping reward. It's about outcomes, okay? But it's about outcomes dependent upon the seeds that you sow to begin with. So if you sow lots of doubt in your mind about your capacities and your capabilities in terms of your psychic talents, what are you going to get as an outcome? More of those doubts and no career in the industry that you want to be in. In opposition to that, if you sow lots of really good positive seeds within your own psyche, within your own brain, within your own heart, within your own soul, then the outcome of that is you're going to feel much better about what you do, and you will also have manifested outcomes as well in terms of career. It's about planning for the future, and it's about actually writing down what you want to achieve. So get a piece of paper, get a pen, and actually write down in terms of work what you want to achieve. I want to do 4 workshops a year, be they in New South Wales, Victoria, South Australia, Queensland, wherever they are, 1 in each state, let's say. I want to have a minimum of 20 people at each of those workshops, and each of those clients will pay XYZ dollars to be there. There will be a minimum of 4 a year. On top of that, I will be working in 2 different shops as a reader by June 2014, you know, whatever the dates are. What I'm saying is here that it's really important that you sow the seeds by making the plan and writing it down, okay? Sitting over the top here is Heather. Oh, brilliant, brilliant, brilliant stave. Really pleased to see this here. This is about love, and it's not necessarily about love in terms of relationships with other people, but it's about, for you, it's about finally getting to grips with understanding how destructive those negative messages that you give yourself can be, and obliterating them, get rid of them. It's about having renewed self-confidence, it's about having renewed self-esteem, it's about trusting in yourself, believing in yourself, and watching yourself catapult into the outcomes that you actually want in terms of a career. Now, thankfully, it's sitting over the top of this one, which is not a stave that I like. So I'm really pleased to see that it's underneath. Strafe or blackthorn here is very much about sadness. It's about disappointment. It's about not achieving, okay? But it sits underneath here. And more to the point, it's actually facing the wrong way. So if it were that way around, then I would be a little bit worried, but it's not. It's this way around, and what that tells me is that as long as you can get to grips with those negative messages that have been hammering your brain and transplant instead of them the positive stuff about your self-esteem, believe in your skill levels, there are no disappointments for you. The world is your oyster, the sky is the limit, you know, all of those all of those amazing sayings, but it's down to you to make them achievable, okay? And then last but not least down here is dewar or oak, one of my absolute favourites for me. He says that, yes, it's a hard road ahead in terms of lots of work, lots of marketing, lots of pushing yourself, lots of relearning to say nice things to yourself about yourself, but it's worth it. Absolutely is it worth it. So what do we have here in terms of a career in the psychic industry, for the want of a better phrase, with you as a reader, and I also see you as a healer. I don't think you mentioned that in your email to me as well, but you know, a psychic healer. Maybe that's around chakra development or rebirthing or Reiki or one of those kind of things. But I really encourage you to have a look at your skills in your ability to heal, not only physically but of course mentally and psychically as well. You have immense talent in that field, and I think you're already doing a bit in that. I encourage you to do a little bit more in that. 2014 is the year where you really do begin to come into your own. It's going to take you a few months to discipline your brain not to give you those negative messages, and instead retrain it to support you and encourage you in the future. Once you've got that nailed though, world is your oyster, as we talked about, but it's really important that you plan it. Okay, part of that is so that you begin to take control again over your future, as we can see here, but also because then you are accountable. So if you plan, for instance, you know, I'm going to do 4 workshops, and one is in this state, one is in this state, one is in this state, and one is in this state, and they're going to be on this date. So one is in February 2014, one is in June 2014, one is in September, and one is in November, for argument's sake. And you make those publicly known. You are accountable for them. You give people time to book into them, but you are accountable and you will make it happen. And the reason that you make it happen is because you finally believe in yourself that you have the skills and the capability to do that. So I'm really hoping that that makes sense for you. Your Druid Animal Oracle card in this particular instance is Stag or Dam. He has a massive affinity to Oak. Oak is the father of the forest. Stag is the father of the animals in the forest. Stag is about dignity. He's about calming the chaos, particularly the chaos in your mind, you know, when those negative things are coming in and they undermine how you feel about yourself. Stag, who was a representative of the Celtic god Cernunnos, calm, peace, rational thought. Okay, so I really encourage you to go and have a look at Stag, see everything that he represents, and use him, if it works for you, as a totem animal for you to bring back some calm and some rationality, if you like, to those negative thoughts that kind of chuck themselves at you. He's also about planning, and he's about making it happen. Okay, So if you've got that written down on paper, you've got your plans all set out, your dates all set out, how many people are going to be there. You also, on that plan, you will write down what shops you're going to be a reader at, what the days of the week are that's going to occur, how much are you going to charge per reading, how many people are you going to see every day, what will be your total income for each week, how are you going to feel about what it is that you're doing. That's all going to be written down, and Stag talks about that as well. It's about planning, it's about preparing, and it's then about delivering on the action. Okay, so I'm really hoping that that makes sense for you, CC, and that it gives you the impetus to know that you can do what you want to do. Absolutely can you do it. This couldn't be more positive if it wanted to be, really. So absolutely you can do it. You just need to be believing in yourself that you can.